Well, hello everybody. My name's Shu, and today I've got Jaime Goldstein here, my lovely friend from Oregon and astrologer, and we're here to talk to you today about the superior conjunction of Venus, which is a very special phenomena in the Venus cycle that happens once every 584 days. So Jamie and I met, I think, was it last year? um, at
Yeah.
in the summit world, I guess. Jamie was organizing the Mercury retrograde alchemy summit, and I was presenting there. And we've been great colleagues ever since. And we share this passion for the Venus cycle. We're Venus followers, so to speak. So I'm so honored to have Jamie here today for my first YouTube video on the Venus superior conjunction. And this is going to be a big one because you'll find out in this video that it is a special shift into a new sign, which only happens every 100 years or so. So, welcome, Jamie.
Oh, thank you so much, Shu. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm so happy to have you here. Now, let's just quickly introduce you to everyone who may or may not know you. Jamie, you are an astrologer working from Oregon and with a psychology background. Is that right?
Yeah, I practiced as a school psychologist in the public schools for 5 years until my Saturn return kind of course corrected me and really brought me to the path of astrology.
Yeah, it's always great when I see people in these, you know, conventional professions value studies like astrology because we know it, I know how important the link is, but it's great to have people in this profession actually value the work that it's and the value that astrology can offer.
Yeah. When I had my very first astrology reading when I was still working as a school psychologist, I just my mind was blown on how can this person know so much about me and my deepest desires and my deepest unconscious things. How can they know this much about me by just looking at this chart here? And that set me on this whole journey where I started studying astrology, and I just knew if I could have looked at my students' astrology charts, I could have supported them so much more effectively on their emotional health and supporting them in the school environment. And I kind of got to the point where I was like, well, if I can't look at their charts, I can't do this job. So, which led me down this path that I'm in now.
And of course, as astrologers, we do use a lot of counseling skills in our
Yeah.
client sessions, but it's great that you are, a qualified counselor and psychologist to be able to handle these very sensitive issues that we often come
Yeah.
across in a professional manner.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that background has been such a support on the consultation end and ethics and all of those things. Yeah.
yeah, amazing. Well, I'm so glad you're here today to talk about the superior conjunction. I thought we'd start firstly by getting the astronomical concepts out of the way because I know some people
Yeah.
struggle with that. And just to keep in mind that we're not going to go too much into the astronomy side today, even though it is important and it is fascinating. But I'll put a link in my description below of a lecture that I gave for Kepler College, which goes into all of the whole Venus cycle in much more detail. So I'm just going to go ahead and share a screen here that I have from that presentation. And so what we're talking about here is the 584-day Venus synodic cycle. The synodic cycle means its relationship with the sun as they travel through around the whole entire wheel and return to the same spot together. And that takes 584 days. So it starts here in the inferior conjunction section. It spends half the time in the morning skies, where we see Venus rise before the sun. So you can get up early and see this bright star in the east. That will be Venus. And then as it gets closer and turns back to the sun, it will start becoming invisible. And this is this whole gray section here. And this gets to the superior conjunction phase of the Venus cycle, which is what we're focusing on today. So this phase is essentially the metamorphosis between the morning star and when Venus births as the evening star. So you can maybe already put together in your mind like what kind of significance this conjunction has. It's a huge transformative moment for the Venus cycle. And then it spends then the next 9 months again as the evening star, where we start to see Venus in the west just after sunset. And then it applies back towards its inferior conjunction. So it's 9 months as a morning star, 9 months as an evening star, flanked with the interior conjunction and the superior conjunctions at either end. Okay, so
And
you
I
can
just
go.
love those. Oh, I'm
Yes,
so sorry. I was just going to say, I love the 9 months, just how it relates to the,
doesn't it?
human gestation cycle and Venus being connected to fertility.
Totally. It's just so fascinating. There's so many little correspondences and coincidences of the Venus cycle that we yeah, that's just, can't be, it just can't be made up. It's
Yeah.
some great cosmic order.
Yeah.
And that with the link to the Fibonacci sequence,
Mm.
which is also fascinating, which is what that lecture that covers as well. But for the purposes of today, what we're going to see is that in general, we we're definitely going to be talking about Inanna, right? Inanna is um, the oldest love story, the myth that very much aligns with the Venus Synodic cycle. And we will see that in this story of Inanna, she has a descent into the underworld, and that's represented by that morning star journey. She's in the underworld and she is killed by a sister and resurrected. And that's represented by this moment right now when Venus is in this invisible phase and undergoing this superior conjunction. So that's what we're in right now. And in December, she'll be rebirthed in the evening phase. And this is aligned to the part of the story in the Inanna myth where she ascends back to her throne. So generally, that's the whole gist of Inanna's story with the Venus cycle. And if we want to see it astronomically as well, this is the pattern that Venus and the sun make in the skies. It makes, that's the sun here, that's Venus, that's Venus here, and that's Earth there. So this is the beginning of the cycle where Earth is on the outside, Venus is on the inside, hence the term inferior conjunction. And it makes this, if you plot their movements, this is the 5-petal rosette that it makes. So it's pretty fascinating. So that's a little bit about the astronomy out of the way, but we want to really get into the juicy stuff today, which is more around, well, firstly, let's talk about the symbolism of what that Venus superior conjunction is, because I think that's what we're all here to learn. Like, what does this all mean for our
Mm.
life? So have you got anything to say around the symbolism of what that superior conjunction is for us today?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, bringing it into the beautiful myth of Inanna that you just spoke to, as to kind of just bring in some context going into the underworld, which you did just beautifully speak to. So with the morning star Venus, it's this energy of surrender and release. So we're releasing egoic attachments, we're releasing distortions, we're releasing conditioning. And if you could think about it in things that are related to Venus, so our sacred feminine essence, there's things around relationships, money, creativity, fertility, all these things. We're releasing what is not true to us and egoic attachments. And then as Venus goes into the underworld, it's metaphorically, it's the ultimate surrender. We're dying to who we are not, who we thought we were, and who we are not, and we're being reborn to who we are and who we're becoming. And so essentially for me, that superior conjunction is that it's that rebirthing moment. It's where, Venus is infused with the light of the sun. She's behind the sun, right? That superior conjunction. So it's this really deep invitation to go inward. Now that we've surrendered and released so much of who we are not, we're getting an opportunity to turn inward, really go into our own unconscious. And to me, the underworld journey is about really embracing and loving all those aspects of ourself that we've kind of splintered off and suppressed and denied and abandoned and rejected throughout our lives, because we received some type of messaging that these authentic aspects of who you are in regard to Venus related themes, we've received some message those things are not okay. So we learn to hide them and splinter them off. And so the underworld journey is this journey of going inward and reintegrating those back into wholeness. You could say like the process of individuation and many senses. And so as the sun meets Venus, it's that resurrection, it's that rebirthing into more of our authentic essence. It's this really powerful rebirthing and resurrection kind of moment
Mm.
in the cycle. I'd love to hear your perspective as well, and anything you want to add in.
Yeah, well, to add to that, I think if listeners out there are wondering, what is it that we're releasing? What is this in relation
Yeah,
to? You can always think back to 9 months ago when we had the
yeah.
last conjunction, the inferior
Mhm.
conjunction where the cycle started. And it's usually what began there that we're starting to release. That's the 9 month theme that we're ending. So if you can think back to January, I think was it around January 14th, I think,
Yeah.
or around about that time, mid-January, that Venus started her cycle.
I think it was
Think
January 8th, and then
January the
her
8th, right?
heliacal rise was about January
The 14th.
14th.
Right, that's right. Yes, because I know some people view the heliacal rise as the beginning, but
Yeah,
I'm not sure about you, but I generally use the inferior conjunction as the beginning of
I
the
do
cycle.
too.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, so think of what was happening around January for you, and think of whether there has been a journey that is about to end or about to undergo some kind of a change or a step up or a evolution in some way. And that's what we're essentially confronting in us. And when we're releasing, I know it sounds so beautiful when you say it, Jamie, but
Oh,
in
it's so hard
reality,
though.
no, no, in reality, releasing is hard work. It's painful. It's confronting. We have to
Yeah.
really face some truths about ourselves, and to really let that ego, shut that ego down, because the ego just wants to hold on to whatever it feels safe with, even if whatever it feels safe with is not great for us.
Yeah.
So yes, in reality, it can feel very confronting, and I find
Yeah.
that this time of that superior conjunction is when we tend to see like big um, disruptions and changes around relationships and around financial situations as
Mm,
well. And it's a great sort of leveling up moment if you can ride through this journey and not react and run away, or fight or flight sort of syndrome. If you can hold that tension, this is where new solutions present themselves. This is that symbolism of that alchemical wedding, where the two parts of us unite in order to birth a new child. And that new child we would never be able to think of had we not have gone through this trauma, this pain, this journey, whatever it is that we're going through right now. So if we can ride it out, that is the goal.
I
Yeah.
love how you said that. This holding this tension really leads to this like alchemical birth. And it is, I find this part of the journey can be quite confronting, quite challenging, because now, Anana is going right into the underworld. She's fully stripped down naked. She's humbled. She's had to give away all of her royal vestments. So just as we've been giving away all of the old, the conditioning, the things we've been giving away, we're metaphorically in the underworld naked right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing to look at but ourselves in many senses. So it's this journey to really like face and hold space for what's coming up from our own unconscious, what's coming up from our
Totally.
own shadow. And because Venus is behind the sun, it's like we find the light from within here.
Totally. That's the raw vulnerability of this phase of the cycle. And don't forget, Inanna is also killed by her sister
Yeah.
as well. So it's like that ultimate betrayal um, that she wasn't expecting. She was expecting to
Yeah.
head down into the underworld to be with her, to support her. And instead, she's killed and hung on the meat hook. And it's it's really interesting in this part of the myth that the thing that resurrects her is this elixir that she organizes from her loyal servant Ninshaba, who she told, if I'm not back in 3 days, to send for help. So she sends two emissaries, these two little flies, to deliver the elixir, which, um, as the story goes, from what I hear, is that she's given 60 to 90 drops of this elixir, which represents the 60 to 90 days that Venus is in the underworld. Um, and astronomically, at this time, we will see Mercury, which is Ninshava, the
Yeah.
emissaries that he sent, which is the twin, meet up with Venus around the time of the conjunction. So it's just such a fascinating story. It's a memory
Yeah.
palace of astronomical movements, as well as the symbolic meaning of this particular phase of the Venus cycle. So psychologically, I think you raised a great point about Venus being behind the sun. There is this great power um, that is in play at the time. That power is often. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but I've often seen in my client charts that the power seems to be perceived as an external sort of power, like a
Yeah.
powerful partner or a powerful boss or something that's really challenging you from a dynamic, like power dynamics perspective. And through this whole process, it's this idea of reclaiming that power. Um,
Yeah.
but it requires a surrendering of sorts. Is
Mhm.
that what you've kind of seen, as a general theme of this time?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that that relationship with power is huge, and learning how to turn inward and claim the power from within. And psychologically, I often see during the Venus, while she's in this underworld phase, she does represent our values in many senses. And sometimes there can be for a period of time, I actually have noticed perhaps sometimes like an apathy around values, like the things we used to care about, maybe
Ah.
we don't value them as much anymore. There can be like a shifting around of values.
Oh, that's so
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I've noticed that sometimes there can be like this apathy of, wait, I don't care about that thing I thought I really cared about. Sometimes it's like a work project or whatever it is. Sometimes there can be even sometimes, like, perhaps I've seen sometimes an apathy around relationships that, the relationships I'm in, maybe I just don't feel as drawn to them. There can be a withdrawnness
Mhm.
just socially in
Mm.
general. It really is
Mhm.
this time that's powerful to just turn inward and have as much retreat time as possible that I do find. But even sometimes in general, like, you might be feeling withdrawn, or it might be other people in your life that are feeling withdrawn. And sometimes it is helpful to know, like, if your loved ones, just knowing that, like, Venus cycle, like perhaps a partner or a loved one or a child, or if you're some of your friends, if they're just like not as responsive and don't seem
Mhm.
as like social and socially responsive, it actually doesn't mean anything's wrong. Sometimes they're just doing their own Venus inward journey. And once Venus kind of pops up as evening star, things kind of return to how they were. But I have seen that withdrawnness
So
even more.
true. Yes,
quiet time.
yes, it's a
There can be, yeah.
disconnection. There's a
That's a good word.
disconnection. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I always think of Venus as a planet of connection. It's the
Yeah, to
social,
harmonize and bond.
yes,
Yeah.
the reconciliation. And, from a traditional perspective, Venus is considered to be highly debilitated at this time because she's within the
Yeah.
beams of the sun. So basically, Venus can't be Venus. So, which means we can't feel connected, which means we're disconnected and aloof,
Yeah.
and we may say things with less sensitivity than what we would if Venus wasn't debilitated, right?
Yeah.
But in a way that kind of brings up the issues to confront, that need confrontation, in order to resurrect and in order to rejuvenate whatever it is, whether it's the relationship or whether it's the job or whatnot. So yeah, that you bring a
Yeah.
really good point there.
Thank you. And the creativity sometimes I've noticed, especially before she's making that superior conjunction. So this kind of like maybe the first half of the underworld journey, we may feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not feeling creatively inspired. It could be like a death, perhaps metaphorical death to some of our old like creative projects and creative inspirations. And it can feel for me, someone that really my work is a very creatively inspired work, it can feel very like scary. I'm like, oh my gosh, is it ever going to come back? I'm not feeling
Yes.
creatively inspired. And I start to kind of panic some, but then I remember it's just there's a death, a metaphorical death to how I've kind of been creatively working with my energy. And then as Venus meets the sun, it's this new creative birth. So there can be some kind of shifting around our creative energy, how we're relating with our creative energy as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I also think, if you think of this part of the journey, Inanna is, in as the morning star epithet of her life.
Yeah.
This superior conjunction is that gateway between her youthfulness and her step into maturity. So
Yeah.
there's a huge transformation that's happening, just as like someone may experience, say, in the process of a Saturn return, where you're
Mm.
stepping out of that maiden stage and into the not the crone. What's the stage that go off? Like just the mother
Yeah.
phase. Like and so as Venus then passes this conjunction, there's this sense of um, passive consideration when it comes to um, approaching relationships. Maybe more compassion, maybe more consciousness, as opposed to a gung ho, naive, energetic approach to things. So you may
Yeah.
even notice that, yeah, not just relationships, but in your creative work as well. There may be more substance in the evening star phases.
I love that.
Yeah. So, in terms of then, like sort of the more mundane experiences, like do you have any ideas as to what we could sort of be on the lookout for, like in terms of mundane symbolism when the conjunction
Mm.
hits later this month?
Yeah, well, I'm actually really curious if you find it to be more star point kind of specific because this is our very and I think you spoke to this, our very first one in Libra. So I do really sense on a mundane level that we'll see on the world stage perhaps things about perhaps justice,
Mm,
like non-hierarchical relationships, kind of working with power dynamics to bring out of balance power dynamics back into balance. Like literally, as I really find it interesting, as Venus was going into the underworld, there was the death of the queen, so there was just really interesting to see some of these correspondences.
yeah, it's amazing. And I usually find that even just symbolism of that meat hook symbolism, I
Yeah.
tend to see that, around the Venus superior conjunction. So trigger warning, like in terms of, I can't remember which, um, I think Jeffrey Epstein was found in his cell hanging, from his jail cell on that superior conjunction of Venus. So it's like that real literal sometimes
Yeah.
symbolism of of that sometimes as motifs within the mundane experience. Um,
Yeah.
but just looking at, I've looked at Meghan Markle's chart previously in terms of this Venus cycle. And one of the things that really stood out was that her first date with Prince Harry happened to be on the superior conjunction of Venus.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's literally um, the king and the queen, symbolism, that
Yeah,
alchemical
that
wedding
sacred
happening.
marriage, alchemical marriage. Yeah.
Or the being kissed by the son, being kissed by the king.
Yeah.
That literally, well, I don't know if they had a kiss, but they had a first
Yeah.
date. And I just thought as well, some other significant people born with this superior conjunction signature in their chart. Well, the most famous one, and it's an example that's used quite often, is Oprah Winfrey. And if you
Mm,
think about her life, she's had this trend of like having a very big struggle in the early part of her life and then overcoming that, surrendering to it and overcoming that, and being one of the most powerful women in the world.
yeah.
So to me, her life very much speaks to that journey of that transmutation that occurs at this part of the Venus phase, being born there.
Yeah.
Um, other characters that were born with this conjunction was Aleister Crowley. And I know
Mm,
he did this.
interesting. I did not know that one.
Yeah, and he actually was an artist as well. And I noticed one of his pieces of art was this um, person hanging from a tree, you know, like with a noose, with a witch standing there.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that is just so symbolic of like this Venus conjunction content within his psychology coming out in
Yeah.
that piece of art. Nicholas Culpeper, Johannes Kepler, Jeff Buckley, Jimi Hendrix. And notice that these characters have this sort of underworldy, secrecy, hidden, occulty kind of feel to them.
Yeah.
There's something mysterious and unconscious about their being.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
I that is really interesting. I did not know they were born with the superior conjunction.
yeah, in that phase. Yep. And so, like, if we think of what happened the last time we were in a superior conjunction, that would have been March 26, 2021. So if we're trying to make out, what this could mean for this current time, you can always refer back to March 2021 to see what was happening. I just know that I remember um, from a consultation perspective, I had a lot of relationship issues that came up around that
Mm,
time. That's just my vague memory
yeah.
of that period of time. But I think that might have been also around the time we met as well.
Yeah.
I
I think
think.
it was because that was right when I
Yes.
was planning the yeah, that was right when I was planning the summit.
Yes, that's right. So very interesting coincidence there. And this
And I
kind of,
think the summit aligned right with her evening star rise.
yes, that's right, because I've presented that talk on Venus as the evening star
Yeah.
at a conference. And I think that's where we had kind of made
Yeah, that's kind of where I
contact shortly
connected
after
with
that.
you, and I was
Yes.
like, "I wanna invite you. I wanna know you." Yeah, do you find
Yeah.
going back so the superior conjunction, going back, like, 8 years to the time those 8 years at a time, there was a superior conjunction, in the same sign, usually
Hmm.
just a few degrees back, just like the start of the cycle repeats in these 8-year cycles. That can be really powerful to see those themes as well, because similar activations, most likely in the same house, it could be different houses based on what house system we're using, but there can be interesting patterns with that, with those 8-year cycles as well.
Totally. So, and because of the exact, well, very exact, precise cycle of Venus, it's really almost to the day, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's really only a couple of days difference. So that's
yeah,
October the 22nd, around about October the 22nd in 2014. So Jamie's saying this is the last time this superior conjunction would have happened in this same spot. Not the same sign, because we're changing signs, which is what we're doing.
Yes. Oh,
Which
well,
is
of course, yes. I just like totally, I'm so used to saying that. And I'm like, oh, now I need to kind of change, because it's the first kind of changing of a
shift.
star point that since I've been practicing astrology.
Yes, it's really fascinating. So we've given people some food for thought now as to what personally could have been happening for them. So should we maybe go through this Venus superior conjunction through the houses and
Yeah,
see,
sure.
maybe add a bit of depth to help people kind of contextualize what this phenomena
Yeah,
means for them? Yeah.
I
So
love that. Sure.
So this will be happening on the 29th degree of Libra. So right at the end of Libra, because it's moving from Scorpio into to Libra. And so if you have uh, Libra in the first house, should we start with Libra in the first house?
Yeah.
So Libra risings. So that would be the conjunction in the first house. So what are we sort of experiencing here, you would think?
Yeah, so there can be big, transformation and rebirth around self-identity, self-image, even things around our body. Like there might be, I want to do some transformational,
A
like dye my
makeover?
hair a new
Yeah,
color or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Yeah, things around even just our relationship to like our self-agency, how we're just going out into the world, how we're letting ourselves be seen by the world. There may be some big transformation around that, and add
Mm.
any first house things that I'm not touching on here.
Yeah, it can be hard sometimes with the first house because it's so much a part of just you that
Yeah.
it's hard to really define what that first house is to me sometimes. But I know traditional sources always talk about the mind and the character of as
Mm,
being the first house, on top of being the body, the physical vestment, and the physical aspects of the living soul. So yeah, big changes, transformations, a new seeding of ideas and creative ideas, perhaps being seeded as well in the life. But
yeah.
I think that really encapsulates it. I also have this image when I think of the superior conjunction of like a witch stirring a cauldron, and putting in things
Mm.
within the cauldron that they want to manifest. And
Ooh, I
so, if you
love
can
that.
think of that image as we go through the houses, that's essentially what could be happening. You don't quite see it yet, but there's things that are emerging and being brewed up, ready
Mm.
to be exploded out into the next 9 months. Okay.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so if you've got Venus in the second house, which would make you I've just gone blank here, uh,
Virgo, right?
Rising, Virgo rising. So what would you say, Venus conjunction?
Well, there could be things around money for sure. This is our house that's connected to our money and our finances. Big things around values as well, because the second house is going to speak to our values. What do we value? What do we care about? What and the deeper level is self-value as well, self-worth,
Hmm.
self-value. So there could be, if this is your second house, there may be a lot of things around, wounds around self-worth that are coming up for alchemical transformation, to have some rebirthing out of claiming more of our self-worth. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
say that the
totally,
finances are the big one though, with the
totally.
second house.
Yeah, and livelihood as well. What do you do to
Mm,
make money? And that sort of
yeah,
ties in so much with what you're saying with values. Do you value yourself? Do you charge your clients
yeah,
in a way that's reflective of your true value? Those are sorts of confrontations that the ego will be facing for the Virgo risings, which will be, which they will find tough anyway, being a Virgo rising, to really show their worth,
yeah,
and they are so,
yeah, with the humbleness of the Virgo rising, just that sacred service humbleness. Yeah.
that's right. Yep. So Leo risings, the conjunction happening in the third house, what would you say?
Well, this is me.
Oh, right.
So,
Yes.
yeah, so around, just themes around, communication. So there could be something, wanting to be birthed around a writing project, podcasting, writing, communication. Now, there could be things going on with siblings or cousins. There could be things going on with your local neighborhood and your relationship with your local community, your like local neighborhood, in-person neighborhood. There could be things around uh, perhaps something like if you're doing any type of work with school children or children that are school age, there could be something, or maybe something comes through, perhaps an inspiration around, supporting children in your local community. And there may be something too, I sometimes find there's other houses that connect with this, but the third house will speak to our personal like grade school kind of years in that period of our life. And so there may be something that's really being alchemized, maybe like a wound from that time in our life that's being
Ah.
alchemized that will birth something new from that alchemy as well.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a really great perspective there. Totally.
Thank
Also,
you.
I think third house as well, I look at it as your personal praxis, what you
Mm.
do to embody your truth in life. Um,
Oh, I like the way you say that. Yeah.
so maybe there could be changes and developments around, your meaning in life, but what does that mean on an everyday level from a routine
Mm.
perspective? Whether it's ritual or whether it's something like an exercise regime or something like that, a yoga practice or something to give you this, it's the joy of the moon, right? The third house. So there's
Mhm.
gives you this sort of cyclical feel of embodying your truth. So
Oh, I
uh,
love that. Being reborn into more of your truth. That's really powerful.
yeah, but the practical aspects of the truth, like not the sort
Yeah.
of truth of like sitting in a ashram in a retreat.
Yeah.
It's the actual what you get do when you're out of the ashram and out of the retreat, and
Mhm.
how do you integrate that into your everyday life? So that's what that
Oh,
third
that's
house is about.
powerful. I love that.
Yeah. So lots happening for you then, Jamie.
Yes.
Okay. Now the fourth house of home, family, the land. So that's cancers. If you're a
Yeah.
Cancer rising, yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, so just like you spoke about the themes around home and family, I mean, there's certainly some really deep alchemy from our own, early life experiences, our family experience, our home life that we had when we were growing up. Probably a lot that's kind of being brought up as Venus is going to meet the sun. That's for alchemization here. And there could be just really shifting or being, a lot of alchemy around our own relationship with what is our relationship with home? What is our relationship with our foundation, our roots? What is our
Mm,
relationship with our family? The fourth house can also point to some of the, especially the like I see can point to, some of the deeper aspects of our psyche that are more hidden that we don't let anyone see outside of our kind of home and family life. And so
very
this could
private.
be some
Yeah.
really deep alchemy on like our private life, some things from our private life as well. Yeah.
Totally. And just to add on to that, the foundations, it's also your lineage, your
Mm.
ancestors, and so generational traumas and things like that that
Yeah.
might be confronted at this time. It's also the house of the father as well. So possibly the paternal side of your lineage may be coming up for you if you are a Cancer rising. So great. So then we come to Gemini rising and the fifth house.
Yes, this is our house of creativity and fertility. So themes around how we're working, how we're relating to our creativity, how we're working with our creativity. There could be some big, I'm sensing some really big openings around creativity, maybe where we've been essentially where our creativity may have been previously blocked because of perhaps some conditioning, a wound, yeah, some type of egoic attachment that's been blocking some flow of creativity. There could be something that's birthed out of this like alchemical union of Venus and the sun. Themes around children fall into the fifth house. So there could be some alchemy around your relationship with your own children. There could be some things around perhaps even conception, or a new
Mm,
birth, a new child, pregnancy, something like that. There could also be the fifth house as the house of like romance as well. So there could be some, rebirthing that leads to a new romance, a new romantic connection. The fifth house is also the house that connects with like leisure and play and pleasure and fun, and even like hobbies and interests. And so there could be something just coming through with those types of themes as well. If you have a fifth house, if you're a Gemini rising, what is your relationship to fun and pleasure and play? There could be some, I do find when there's fifth house activations, inner child healing can be really powerful as
mm,
well. So like even to contemplate, like, what as a child, what did you find that was truly like joyful and fun? How did you want to spend your time? And do you bring those things into your life right now? And if not,
mm.
that can be really powerful to kind of bring those things in to like access more of your fertility and creative energy.
Yeah, totally. I always find the fifth house, the house where we just tap into our flow, like the way
Mm,
children do.
yeah.
And so maybe this, like this moment right now, coming up to this superior conjunction, you may feel you might not have any sort of natural flow to what you're doing, that you're dragging your feet, or you're just not at the right place at the right time, and things like that. And then at this sacred union of the Sun and Venus, there could be a big shift where you
Mm.
may come into experiencing like a new dimension of being, where things kind of start to flow towards you. So, um, yeah, possibly. So, yeah, so that's the fifth house and Gemini rising. So we have now Taurus rising and the sixth house conjunction. So, what have you got?
Yeah, so the sixth house is the house of our like physical health and physical wellness and well-being, and in many senses. So there could be some shifts around health, if perhaps and the way I'm just kind of intuitively sensing it is some of the underworld initiations that are coming through for those that have this Venus conjunction, the sixth house. Perhaps some of that like working with doing that shadow work, working with the unconscious material could actually support, as Venus meets the sun, some type of, there might be some correspondence to, some type of like benefit to health. The
Hmm.
fifth house or the sixth house is the house of our kind of daily habits, patterns, routines. How are we structuring our daily life? How are we structuring our daily life to essentially support optimal physical health in many senses? And you could even put in perhaps like mental health as well into all types of health. The opposite house, the 12th house, can kind of be more of our spiritual health, but health in all ways, all senses I tend to look at with the
Hmm.
sixth house. What is your relationship with your sacred service? Because the sixth house is the house of service. So there could be something big coming through that's wanting to be wanting to be birthed in the realm of sacred service with the sixth house.
Mm.
um
Mhm. Yep, and small
yeah,
animals as well, our pets.
yeah,
There could be
yeah,
some things going on with them in
yeah.
October. And the other
If you
thing
have
too,
a boss,
pardon?
or sorry, yeah, if you have a boss, like any time, sometimes those your job role will fall into the sixth house if you kind of have a boss over you. So there could be things with
Yeah.
that kind of
Yes.
going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to add to that, because that sixth house is the that I it's an unseen house, isn't it? Like, it's with
Yeah.
planets in the sixth house, we generally don't see those planets. They're quite tucked in there and hidden. It's a place where we don't really feel acknowledged. And there could be some challenges around your visibility, about your ability to be heard and seen and acknowledged at the time of this conjunction, and the struggle that you have to go through around the issue of not being validated and not being seen, maybe felt very strongly as well.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. Okay. So that was for all the Taurus risings. Then we're now at Aries rising and the conjunction happening in the seventh house.
Our relationship house. So this can be really big themes around partnership, commitment with another. The seventh house really falls under any type of one-on-one, non-hierarchical relationship, partnership. So it could be romantic, it could be a one-on-one friendship, could be like a business collaborator, commitments, contracts, these kinds of things tend to fall in the seventh house. So there's a lot relationship oriented for the Aries risings here.
Yep. So that's a pretty clear cut, straightforward um, interpretation. I guess there's not much more to the seventh house. I guess it's the other person. So that could also involve
Yeah.
your opponents, your competitors. Traditionally, it was open enemies, the people that we know that we're against. So there could be big confrontations coming up for you with the conjunction happening there too.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So moving on now to Pisces and the eighth house. Now, this is, I think, ego death, isn't it, in a
Yeah,
big way?
totally. Yes, I totally agree with that. The eighth house is really deep. This is the house of transformation, death, and rebirth. This is the house where we really confront our deep, deep unconscious things, and particularly how they come up in context to our relationship with others. The eighth house, I mean, it's the house of, they call it, sex, death, and taxes. The eighth house. So there could be really deep, around your deepest relationships. I find that the eighth house really connects to our own relationship with intimacy, with trust, with surrender. The seventh house is kind of where we go into the partnership and the commitment, and we kind of figure out, well, what are what is the contractual thing, the expectations, and this idea that relationships are supposed to be non-hierarchical. But then we move into the eighth house and it's like, wait, but there's a power struggle here. So this is
Hmm.
where the eighth house is where, so there could be big themes around power struggles in relationships. If there's something there, if you're feeling a push-pull, a power struggle with your intimate relationships, there's really powerful alchemy there available.
Hmm.
Big things around what is your ability to really be intimate with another, to trust another. There's this energy of surrender. There could be things around, the eighth house can connect to things like, alimony. Anytime there's anyone else's money involved, loans, mortgages, alimony, these kinds of things very much connect to the eighth house. So there could be some themes around that. And I'm sure you have some beautiful things to add in here. I think the deepest thing, though, is like what wants to be alchemized within to really experience, because the eighth house also is like the house of tantra, to experience more union with ourselves and with others, how we can be intimate, how we can
Mm.
trust. And that takes like confronting our deepest, our deepest things within us. So yeah, anything else
Yes.
on there?
Yeah, I guess to add to that, that it is that house of death. So it's, you're at the edge of life and death, and that's when you experience things what they really are, like the true
Yeah.
vulnerability of everything as it is, that we're
Mm.
confronting. And I always find that eighth house has a lot to do with our inner angst and anxiety, where fears and paranoias can come up as
Yeah.
well. So for the Pisces risings here, like there could be some difficult moments coming up around this conjunction, where there could be a tendency to be carried away with like an overwhelming sense of fear or paranoia about something. So like very important to ground yourself as much as you can, and to
Mm.
to ride through it, I guess, because it is part of that process of that ego letting go. It'll want to hold
Yeah.
on and grasp as long as it can.
And there
um
could be something about like esoteric studies, your relationship to the occult, or like powerful teachers of, esoteric teachers or study. There could be
mm.
something around that as well.
Yeah, it's very edgy. It's a very edgy house, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Taboo
Uh,
subjects come up in the eighth
yes,
house.
that's right. That's right. But yeah, and just general finances. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, other people's money, but yeah, I think it's taxes, superannuation,
Mm.
all that boring stuff that
Yeah.
needs to be confronted with too. So,
Yeah.
and the control power dynamics of money. your
Yeah.
relationship to money with another person. That also comes up a lot in the eighth house. So
Yeah.
yeah, all right. Aquarius rising, the ninth house. So this is my rising sign, by the way.
Oh, yes. I'll let you share on this one.
Okay, so obviously ninth house is to do with well, broadcasting is one of them. So I thought that's an interesting the fact that this is my first YouTube video and
Oh,
it's
I love
about the Venus thing.
that.
But that wasn't planned. That was just a later reflection. But to do with knowledge, wisdom, truth, even travel, teachers, mentors, the higher truth. It's the consciousness of, and being able to see what's ahead. I find that falls into the ninth house.
Yeah.
So, whilst the Venus is there being in the shadows in the ninth house, there could be some inability to kind of have that sense of paranoia, that ability to see
Mhm.
what's coming up ahead of you and therefore being paranoid about it. But at the same time, there's also that opportunity to try and transmute that into a new seed, a new seed of creativity that can then help with bringing out your truth to the world in some way. Have you got anything to add?
Oh my gosh, it's really, really good. I'm just tuning in here for a moment. I'm sensing, that there might be something that the ninth house kind of what you spoke to, it's like kind of expanding the horizons of our philosophy, our worldview, our spirit. So yeah, there could be some new
Mm,
experiences just reborn over this next like that might unfold over this next 9 month evening star Venus cycle about, yeah, having some experiences that really expand your horizon spiritually,
yeah.
philosophically, existentially, those kinds of things.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, your belief systems and religions, or yeah, great point. Yeah, totally. Okay, Capricorn rising, so Libra in the 10th house. That's the 10th house of the very public life, what the way the world sees you. So here we're, I guess, seeing, let's see, the maybe some challenges that you may be heading into, power dynamics with authorities or your bosses, superiors, that can kind of lead to some kind of a new way of working. Um, so that 10th house is also the house of the mother as well. So there could be significant um, developments there with the relationship with your mother. Anything else that you can add?
Just what's coming to me in the moment is perhaps something around the 10th house can be about like recognition and success
Mm,
and these kinds of things. And I'm just sensing in the moment as Venus is in the underworld, perhaps maybe some of the ways that because this is this Capricorn risings that we're looking at.
yes. Yep.
Okay, yeah, Capricorn risings, perhaps some of the ways that the previous ways you've been receiving success and recognition are maybe kind of feeling like they're not there. And it could be this really big journey to turn inward and really like cultivate that inner, self-worth and self-value.
Mm,
And there could be something new and beautiful that's like birthed out of perhaps that some shifting around like external to internal recognition. I don't know, something is kind of coming around that.
yes, that's amazing. Yeah, that's a really great point. Yeah, kind of like reimagining what that inner power means to you, because we're moving
Mm.
from that external morning star phase to the internal evening star phase, where um, then it becomes more important to have substance and gravitas as opposed to that outer outside strength. It's an
Yeah.
inner strength, an inner resilience that we're developing and creating here.
Yeah, and I'm, like, sensing something new wanting to emerge from exactly what you just spoke to.
Yeah, right. So, okay, so now we're on to Sagittarius and the 11th house.
Yeah, so this is the house of groups, networks, community. So big, there could be big, themes around these things in your life. Like, what is your relationship to community? Do you feel connected to a community? 11th house can also be very much like global community as well. And now that we're living in this time where over the last few years, so much has moved online. We have so many opportunities to create global community as well, but certainly like your local community can also be in-person community, can be 11th house. So what is your relationship to community? It may be as Venus is moving now that she's in the underworld right now, this first part before she's met the sun, it might be that there might feel something not connected to community or a disruption around community. And there could be something around that. So I'm just sensing a lot of that alchemization around community and groups and networks. And are you essentially, are you in connection, in community with people who have hold the similar like Venus values? You could and then so maybe be more like Jupiter, but like higher ideals and higher values. And when we're aligning with those groups that hold our values and higher ideals, then we can come together as a group and create more collective solutions, community solutions, which is very much about 11th house as well.
That'd be it's a nice house, the 11th house. It's
Yeah.
very aspirational. There's a
Yeah.
forward-looking nature to it, where we're
Mm,
looking at rising and looking to the future, which is so Sagittarian as well. So
yeah.
there could be a really good sort of opportunity here for Sagittarians to really plant that seed for what they want to see in their immediate, like near future, as in the next 9 months.
Mm,
That can sort of involve those collaborations or the synergies between the people of like minds, where there's shared values and a re-engagement of your own personal values with your community. So that's a
mm.
really great placement for that. And I think lastly, now we've got Scorpio. So Scorpio risings, you'll have the conjunction in the 12th house. So that will be a very hidden, maybe private matter, I would say. Maybe issues coming up that may be weighing you down, that may be putting you into a state of, sorrow and loss, which is that 12th house. But ultimately, for the purpose of, rejuvenating that ego, that 12th house is really about no ego at all, isn't it? So it's a
Yeah.
really great way to make use of this conjunction by having it in a place of no ego, into a no man's land, so to speak, where we can really get to ground zero and to build up from there. And the resourcefulness of the Scorpio risings will, I'm sure, do a great job of rebuilding and resurrecting Inanna from that meat hook. But yes, so there could be some themes of depression or anxiety, that theme of overwhelm, or maybe feeling controlled or overpowered by something that you may need to work through. Anything else that you want to add, Jamie?
That's so powerful, and I'm really feeling what you spoke about, that kind of dissolution of the ego. And Scorpio risings are so amazing already. They're so self-reflective and really going into their inner realms and exploring, like the level of self-awareness of Scorpio risings is so powerful. And the 12th house will bring up our blind spots in our psyche. So there could be something that's maybe been a blind spot in, if you're a Scorpio rising, a blind spot that's been in your psyche. We all have them, but that's just kind of coming to awareness now, that's seeking some integration. And I'm sensing, I love, like, one of the ways I really connect with the 12th house is just what you spoke about. It's that dissolution of ego. And it's like, where can we really let go of our thinking mind, our need to know, our need to control through our like forceful human action? It's just letting go and letting spirit flow through us. It's where we almost just become the vessel for spirit to move through us. So there could be something really powerful about letting go of control. Maybe is there an area of your life that you've really been trying to control and some type of attachment to it, and there could be something powerful that might be coming up around just dissolving that, letting the ego go and just letting spirit flow through. And there could be some powerful things too around already, Scorpio rising seems to be very psychic, very intuitive already. So there could be some 12th house, some mystical things, divine
Hmm.
guidance coming in, connecting in with your spirit guides, or however you would connect with that, being the oracle, essentially letting yourself be the oracle for something to come through could be really powerful.
Mm. Yeah, totally. That's for sure. And like we mentioned before, just reflect back to October 2014, and
Yeah.
you'll see that there is a theme that will be aligning to what we've just said through the houses based on your ascending sign. So you can always look back in order to look forward with more confidence. So I just wanted to end now by having a quick discussion about this Libra superior conjunction, because we've alluded to it already that this is a super special one. Um, because from my understanding, every time there is a superior conjunction in a particular sign, which is only one of every 5 signs of the zodiac, which makes the 5-pointed star or the 5-petaled rosette, um, it will spend, that point will spend approximately 100 years in a particular sign, and then it will move backwards into the preceding sign. So for the last 100 years, this point has been in Scorpio, and on October the 22nd, it will move back to Libra, on the 29th degree of Libra, for the first time since, and I looked this up, since about the year 974. That was the
Wow.
last time that it moved from Scorpio to Libra. So we're talking about huge evolutionary legacy cycles here that we're shifting. And there's been a few this year of of phenomena of that kind of quality, which kind of is symbolic of the times of the
Yeah.
current moment. We're going through big shifts, and we're not exactly sure what we're actually going through, but we're nevertheless seeing this sort of ship going in a totally different direction. So Venus then is now moving from a Mars ruled sign into a Venus ruled sign. So what would you say about that, Jamie?
Well, I love that you just spoke about that, because this is the Venus cycle, and we've not had star points in any of Venus's signs right now. There's not one in Taurus at the moment. We're just moving to Libra, and we've at the moment we don't have them in Pisces where she's exalted. So I think this is bringing in something really powerful, as we've kind of been in this time where we're learning to come back, and as a collective level and on a personal level, come back into balance between the feminine and the masculine, within and without as well. And I think this is really going to support that kind of that balance as Venus is coming into this Libra star point. I think that it's going to bring in a new relationship paradigm, being with these star points in Libra, particularly a relationship around, if we're looking at moving from Scorpio into Libra, our relationship, it's a relationship or a relationship paradigm that's really going to create some movement towards these like unhealthy power dynamics we've had on a collective level, but that also filter into all of our personal lives as well, to come more into balanced relating, and that harmonious relating, you might say non-hierarchical relationships. I think a lot of themes around justice are going to be big in these Libra star points, kind of bringing things back into justice, justice like for all, as opposed to just a few or certain groups of people. I think this is really going to support a collective, and not that it will be a walk in the park or easy. I think we're going to have some big things come up that are going to shift us in that direction, that maybe, as we're already seeing, all the things we're already seeing, all the other astrological energies. It's a tumultuous process on the world as we're going through it. But I do see a lot of support to kind of bring things into balance here, that I think will be really great as a collective long term, as over the
Mm.
next 100 years, as we have these star points in Libra where there is more justice for all, bringing more beauty into the earth, bringing more beauty into our lives. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, that shift from Mars to Venus is like, moving away from um, conflict and power to maybe more harmony and reconciliation. We're
Yeah.
moving from a masculine energy to a feminine archetype, where there could be a more passive approach towards the life that we want, the desires that we have for our own lives based on our own values, but rather than having to push and pursue with great force, we can let things evolve and form it more naturally. And to me, that's like the Venus way. It's like attraction and and magnetizing as opposed to pursuing and hunting. And so I'm hopeful that with the next 100 years of this being Libra star point, that we're going to at least have one of the star points be more about, harmony, social cohesion, um, relationship, the importance of relationships in community, in your personal life, having the resources available to you that are in harmony with your own values and your own truths. So there's definitely something to look forward to with this shift. And
Beautiful around the arts and like the fine arts too. Would you?
yes, yeah, totally. I'm definitely looking forward to more, say, indulgence and and
Yeah.
ease and grace in life. And so you can think of, if you're looking at a whole sign chart, look at where the Scorpio to Libra houses are. You're going to be seeing a focus move away from that Scorpio house into the Libra house there. So you can meditate on that and think about what that could mean for you personally, with a star point processing to that part of your chart. So yeah, and the other thing I had to add to that is that we're moving from a hot and dry planet in Mars, where
Mm,
the dryness shows a separation quality, and Mars is the planet of severing. It's about cutting, it's about separating, it's about having to make decisions that are difficult, that having to cut through the noise. That's the nature of Mars. And Venus is a cool and moist planet. The moisture brings in this binding element to our natures. And so this is where that social cohesion will be, I hope anyway, will be speaking more loudly, at least every 8 years from now, anyway, in October.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely a lot to look forward to. I think yeah, I think we've done a pretty good treatment on this superior conjunction here. Have you got any last words to add at all?
I'm just so grateful to be here. And this is just kind of a question. I'm actually really curious because I know you just work so beautifully and ceremonially and magically with things. What are you going to be doing on the Venus star point,
Yes.
or any suggestions on how we can work with it magically?
Yeah, I know. We were meant to talk about the magic side of things because obviously, you and I both work magically with the Venus
Yeah.
cycle. Well, it is definitely, especially if you have a Venus perfection year, you're going to be feeling this in a big way. And that superior conjunction moment is, I think it is more of that ceremonial magic, that high magic moment of the cycle, right? This is that alchemical wedding. And so I always like to meditate, and you won't be able to see Venus, but you can, if you look straight into the sun, obviously with the right
Mhm.
protection, if you
Yeah.
need, Venus will be there, hiding behind the sun there. So you can, sit in meditation. You can use the correspondences of Venus and the sun to set up an altar. So Venus, I guess, from a correspondence perspective, it's, I guess, the rose is a Venus flower, mugwort, yarrow. Um, the green color green is also a Venus color. The stones, I like to use rose quartz. Um, and I think songs and hymns is very
Mhm.
Venusian. And so if you wanted to use sound as part of your ceremony, that would, I think, very much appease to the Venusian goddess. And of course, with the sun, lots of gold colored objects, and beautiful warming spices like cinnamon. I like to use with the sun, and calendula is also another herb
Mm.
that I like to use with the sun. Um, and yeah, I think it is just that, um, in terms of, what you may want to spellcraft with, I think, a good meditative state where you can tap into that flow, that emptiness and that void, and allow that third child to be born within you at that moment. I think that download, it will come through at that moment. Um, because according to the myth, according to the symbolism, and according to the astronomical data, that's what it all points to, right? So yeah, sit in your own union, whether you use yoga or whatever form, and to allow that third child to drop in, and maybe for some people, literally, if you're planning a child, but some kind of
Yeah.
creative project that you can seed at that time, at
Mm,
least for a 9-month period. Yeah, what are,
I
what are
love
you going to do?
Gosh, I tend to do really similar. I mean, meditation, I love to go out and just receive the rays of the sun, knowing that
Mm,
Venus is there and fused in it. I do tend to create altars around the interior and the superior conjunction, like you said, with those correspondences with herbs or flowers or crystals that are connected to them. Having it like working with candles can be really powerful, just with
yes.
like being Venus, being, in the light of the sun. I've not done this, and I think I would have needed to plan it better. But as I was kind of like rereading the myth of Inanna and looking at the elixir of life that brought Inanna back to life, I was like, wow, that would have been cool.
Mm.
I don't know. I need to think of when to really create the elixir, but to anoint myself with the 60 drops, of the elixir of life. So I want to maybe in the future plan to do something, maybe plan ahead more and work like with an
Oh,
actual hitting an elixir.
amazing. I actually have a very good herbalist, an alchemist friend who
Ooh,
is called
yeah.
Enki as well. So maybe we will
Perfect.
have to get Jessie there to make up a little potion for us.
Oh, that would be so cool. I was reading that myth and I was like, that would be a great kind of ceremonial ritual to kind
It
of
would
reenact.
be. Yes, that's right. Yeah, and so obviously you can do this on your own or within a little group if you like. Either way works, but I think it is just a potent opportunity to tap into that high magic, if you can. Even if you don't have all this time to set up altars and whatnot. Even to find 5 minutes on that day, on the well, for us it's the 22nd of October. I'm not sure what time it is in the
Yeah, it's the
States.
22nd too. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll put the exact times in the description below, so that if people want to tap into the exact time to sit for 5 minutes, and you have your 5 minutes of silence and honoring, of the goddess, that would be a great thing to do, and you'll see how that magically unfolds over the next 9 months. So, where can people find you, Jamie, and what have you got going on right now?
Yeah, so my website's just astrologywithjaime.com, and Jamie's Jaime, and that kind of has all my links to social media, my email list. And right now I'm just offering readings and I love sitting in space to offer readings. And yeah, it's what I
Great.
love.
Amazing. Well, that's so thank you for having coming on the show and to
Oh,
have
I'm
this
so delighted to
conversation.
be here with you.
And I look forward to, at least, sitting within this conjunction with the rest of you all. We will all be there in spirit together at the very least. We can synchronize our watches and time it to the exact moment. And at least, yeah, see what we can co-create with the universe this way. So
Mhm.
thank you all for, it was meant to be a 30-minute discussion, but I think we've blown right out. So thank you for your patience. And yeah, so all the things that I need to say with YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification button. All the information will be in the description below. of where to find us if you're interested in consultations or mentor. Are you still doing mentoring and teaching at the moment?
You know, I am. I don't have anything scheduled at the moment. So while Venus has been in the underworld, I'm like, I'm going to take a little hiatus and a little break from that.
Sure, yep. But I know Jamie's also a really fabulous astrology teacher as well. So definitely hope to see you all for the next video. And yeah, enjoy the conjunction.